Hey guys, it's Caban from True Champion Gaming here, and today we're actually going to be doing a rulings video. We haven't done one of these in quite a while, but I thought that this was a pretty important one to put out there, as we're going to be talking about some rulings and stuff that we have seen done improperly multiple times in even top cut of Ascent Houston and Ascent Auckland. So, obviously newer players might not know all the full rulings and everything, and there can be some intricacies of the game that are hard to understand, but we have even seasoned, high-level competitive players making a lot of these mistakes, including ourselves. So we want to put these out here for more awareness on these specific ones, as they are really important ones to know. So we're going to start off with a fairly easy one, and that is just your hand in your memory zone. So there is a little bit of ambiguity on this one. So as long as you are keeping your hand very obviously separate from your memory, it should be fine. I know that some players will turn their cards, like horizontal, while their memory is vertical and their hand is horizontal, and it's also very separated from each other. And that is fine, I think, as long as your opponent's okay with it, of course, that's fine. But it is very, very improper to put your memory down and then just put your hand down right next to it. They can be very easily mixed, or it might be very hard for you or your opponent to forget which stack is which, and it can just get very messy. So really try to be careful. I personally like just putting my hand above the memory zone. I think that is the best way to distinguish it from your memory. So I will usually lay my hand down near my champion, since that's a whole row above my memory zone, if I don't want to hold it in my hand. But yeah, that's a very, very crucial one, and one that you can actually get a game loss for if you keep repeating this offense. So, as someone that has had this happen to them in Top Cut, where my opponent is not really distinguishing their memory very well, I was in a Top Cut Ascent match, and I couldn't tell which one was which, and I couldn't even tell which phases he was in because it was very confusing with his memory in hand and everything. So, you do really want to be careful with this, as it can really disrupt you and your opponent and just the whole game state. So just a very important one to get in a good habit of, because if an opponent does call you on this and you don't fix that habit during that game, you can result in a game loss. All right, now we're going to be moving on to an example using Dungeon Guide. So this is more of a ruling based on failing to find, but the Dungeon Guide is the best example and the one that comes up the most, I think. So if you play Dungeon Guide, you put 3 down, you play it, you do the on-enter effect, you banish 2, and then you forget to put your champion on there, and then you do another game action, such as swinging with Dungeon Guide. You have now progressed the game, and you can no longer go back and put your level 3 or whatever champion you had wanted to level up to onto your champion stack, because you've already allowed your opponent to interact with you. They might have wanted to do like a resolute stand on the Dungeon Guide attack or something like that. The game has already progressed too far. So Dungeon Guide is an optional level up after you banish. So if you've banished 2, you can theoretically look in your material deck and fail to find your next level. The reason that this is really important is because you can actually use this to your advantage. If you're playing a Rye deck, for example, and you really need some extra levels, a play that you can do is, even if you're already on level 3 Rye, you can play Dungeon Guide, banish 2, hopefully Arcane, and then increase your level and just not level up anymore. So it is not an illegal game action or whatever. It is not a mandatory effect. It is an optional effect to actually put your level on your level stack. So make sure, if you are playing Dungeon Guide, banish your 2, and before you do anything else, bring out your next level if you wanted to level up from Dungeon Guide. So be very careful with that. So a kind of similar ruling as well is, and that I've seen a lot of confusion about, is terrafring. So if I'm going to my recollection phase, my opponent pops terrafring, and let's say, I do whatever, I draw for turn, I'm thinking about stuff, I maybe play like a creative shock, I'm taking a while, and then I finally go to attack. And, I did a lot of stuff, so I've forgotten that terrafring is out. We're human, it happens. I declare an attack with whatever ally champion, and I'm not putting 2 down. I just say, swing with Weaponsmith. My opponent reminds me that I am under terrafring, so I have to pay 2 to attack. That attack will be reversed. It is not an activation or anything like that. I attempted to perform an illegal action. I attempted to do something that the game's rules would not allow me to do. So even though I've attacked with Weaponsmith, I've declared that, I wasn't actually able to do that, so I'm not forced to actually pay the 2 and continue on with it. The attack will get reverted, essentially. Well, the attack will never happen. and then I can choose to pay 2 and attack, or I can choose to not pay 2 and not attack. It's essentially kind of like just attempting to do something completely random, like bring back a card from the graveyard. You can't do that. You didn't have a card that let you do that, so it's just not going to happen. It's not like you have to do this other action. So just hopefully that clarifies that a little bit. I know it's a little confusing. Rulings can be sometimes, so definitely feel free to comment below if you're confused about anything, and hopefully we can explain it a little bit more thoroughly. But let's go on to our last ruling. So our last ruling is activating cards. That's the best way I can think to say it quickly, but we're going to be mainly talking about when a card is activated and when you can no longer choose to pay your reserve cost for it. So if you attempt to do something like Fireball, so you put 2 down, you play Fireball from hand, and you say, I'm going to target that ally. You've activated that card. You have paid its cost, and you have chosen a target. That card is now on the stack, and you are waiting for your opponent to respond to it. So even if they do not respond, and you quickly say, oh wait, let me change this. I want to put this card from hand into memory instead of this card. That card's already been activated, and so even if you say it a millisecond afterwards, it's too late. Your opponent could have given you some sort of information, even like subconsciously with like a face twitch or something like that. And so games don't allow you to do this because of that. So you don't want to be activating a card and then saying, oh, actually I take it back, I'm going to do this instead, because it can unknowingly gain information from your opponent. Once a card is activated, you can no longer change cards from hand to pay for that cost. I will give you an example of when cards can be changed. So let's say that I'm turn player, I put 2 down for Fireball, I put it on the field, I haven't chosen a target yet, I'm still thinking, I'm sitting there and I say, no, I'm going to put this card instead. So that card has never been activated yet. I haven't passed priority or done any of that. My opponent hasn't had the chance to actually, have their interaction with the card. So that card can be changed at that time. But if you have actually done a game action where your opponent now has the chance to respond, at that point it is now too late and you cannot take back cards to pay for that. So hopefully those were clear enough. I know that this is some of the more hard to follow stuff in our videos. These are the more detailed, the more intricate things, and it's a pain. Rulings are always hard to understand, hard to learn, but they're very, very important, especially for high-level competitive play. Everyone wants to just have a good, fun, fair game of Grand Archive, and that's the most important thing when you're trying to learn all of these. So hopefully you guys gained some new knowledge today. And like I said, if anything is confusing, feel free to comment below. Either someone from True Champion Gaming or a lovely community member might be able to have the answer for you. So until next time, peace.